And let's get off of the hardwood and onto the bench, but not in a suit. Or now it's really tracksuit. But you're still wearing the basketball jersey. Let's talk about the sixth man of the year. And I went through this, and to me, from what I've heard and what I was looking at the numbers, people that are qualify for this stupid ass award. Um, I think there's two candidates that could win this. I don't know if you kind of came to that conclusion, but I have two guys that I think could win it. Do you want to lead it off with who you think should be sixth man of the year?
Yeah, this is funny because it's the reverse of the last one because I thought there was a pretty clear cut winner. To me, this is really one candidate, and that would be Malcolm Brogdon. I think I really like Brogdon as a sixth man. I think he's got a kind of a dual function in the sense that he can kind of be a spark plug in the way that we usually expect a sixth man to be. Like typically when you think of a sixth man, you think of a guy who it's like you can run your second unit's offense through him entirely, and like the Lou Williams type. And like Brogdon could sort of do that, but he's also like a stabilizing force. Like he's a plug and play type of guy. So you can also mix and match him with the starters. Very like a pretty versatile guard that way. Good shooter, good defender, good playmaker, just good at everything. I think he's the best reserve in the league this year. I hope that he's one of your two. Who else?
So I had Brogdon finishing second,
Oh,
and they were very close. They're very close because
yeah.
Brogdon, everything you said about Brogdon is correct, and the shooting efficiency, I think it's like 44% from 3 point range. Like you could do nothing outside of take those threes, and you're a pretty valuable player in the NBA because that type of efficiency is amazing. Mine is Immanuel Quickley.
Oh yeah.
And Quickley's been awesome. He roasted the Rockets for 40 points, but you have to throw in the Rockets tax. So you subtract 25% of that total. So, it's really okay. He erupted for like 30 points against a real team, but, he still gets to say he scored 41 points against the Rockets. But it's not that. Quickley's on off numbers are incredible. And that was like the thing that actually was the deciding factor for me because I was looking at Brogdon and Quickley's advanced metrics, and they're relatively close. The difference for me is that when Brogdon's on the court and Brogdon's off the court, the Celtics are relatively similar. I know he's going with their starters are great for Boston, but I check the facts, the Carfax, and when he's on the court with Jason Tatum, it's not like there's this big bump. They're significantly worse when he's out there and there's no Jason Tatum. So like I kind of use that as like a proxy for like how is he when he's playing with the best player, and he's good. Like that's exactly what you want from a six man. Like that's totally fine. But what Quickly's been able to do in New York has been pretty insane in terms of when he comes on the court, they get better. And I think that to me, they don't just get better, they get substantially better. So when Quickly's on, they have a 6.46 net rating. When he's off, it's -2, right? Like that's just to me, that's such a massive change in how well your team is playing that I go, okay, like if I'm close, this guy seems like he's impacting the team substantially.
But there's an obvious question here. Can you think of what I'm going to ask?
Yes.
How much time does he share with RJ Barrett? Because if he's regularly replacing Barrett, that accounts partly for the fact that his splits are so insane. Whereas Brogdon is replacing one of Marcus Smart or Derek White, which is a harder task. You know what I mean? I'm not saying Quickly's not a good candidate, but that would be my counter argument.
Okay. So I understand. I understand. And maybe this doesn't matter, but these on off splits, when you hear them, you'll be like, okay, but even still, we should maybe consider this. So when RJ Barrett's on the court without Immanuel Quickley, that's 1,400 minutes. The Knicks have a -2.5 net rating. With Quickley on the court with no RJ Barrett, they have a +11 net rating in 1,300 minutes. With Immanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett on the court, it's 0.7 net rating. So I'm just saying, and that's over 1,000 minutes, right? So Immanuel Quickley takes RJ Barrett from being a massive negative, from being a negative to being neutral. But the main thing with Quickley for me is that what he does to their defense is absurd. And they have Jalen Brunson, who's a smaller point guard, and so I do really think Quickley's huge. Their defensive rating with him on the court's 110.3. When he's off, it's 122.5. Right? Like that to me is why I picked Quickley, is that he basically takes a team from being the worst defense in the entire league to being well above average and almost one of the best defenses in the league. And that to me was just the tiebreaker, is that I just felt like Quickley changes the Knicks' defensive fortunes in a way that's just so massive that I think you have to give him credit for, because we never give defensive players a shout in sixth man of the year, but it's not like Quickley is like, a no offense player, right? Like he's out here putting up fantastic offensive numbers as well off the bench. We're talking about 14.7 points per game on 37% shooting from three. Like, his offensive numbers aren't that much behind Brogdon. And then you see the defensive impact. To me, it's like, oh, like that was my tiebreaker, even though I think Brogdon's a great choice. And it's one of those things where it's almost like working against him that his team is so good that it's hard for, because like, is he better than Derek White? And is Derek White kind of their sixth man in some regard, right? Like Derek White's been
Yeah,
incredible.
that's a fair argument. It's like, don't
yeah.
they just kind of have a rotation? Like the Celtics just play 3 combo guards in any kind of combination that they want. Yeah, no, it's like, but I do believe he qualifies in terms of like games started on the bench or whatever. I believe Brogdon is technically the sixth man. But so you made a great case for Quickley too, for sure. Let's move on.
I honestly, if either one win, I'll be happy, because
definitely.
And you know why this year is going to be a good sixth man of the year? Because there's not one guy just bullshitting his way to 20 points off the bench.
Yeah. Also, as an aside, man, I feel like last year there was a lot more like debate on several of these awards, and there were a lot more difficult calls to make. And this year, most of them are like fairly, like there's only really a couple of good candidates for each. Quite just random, but it's kind of interesting though. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I think the issue is that so much oxygen in the awards discussion has been drawn from the MVP debate that there's just like no time or headspace for the other ones in the way that there usually is, right?
Sorry, last year there were like 6 legitimate most improved player candidates, and like remember, because we didn't. I said Anthony Simons, he wasn't even like a finalist in the end. Like this year, it's gonna be one of the guys that we said. But yeah, no. But what you're saying is also definitely an explanatory factor. It's true. Which let's use that to segue into the MVP.